I've been thinking recently about at what age should a girl be thinking about marriage? And the more I think about it, is the more I have to just admit it's kind of like the younger the better. Hey, this is the antisocial socialite back at it again. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you are new to the channel or you have not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for, darling? Hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell. So when I get to running this mouth, baby, you are in the loop. You see the title, you know what time it is. Women should seek to be married by the age of 23. In the black community, there's a huge problem of men wanting to be married, but women not understanding, in my opinion, from what I've kind of seen, that there are really two areas or two time frames in a man's life when he really seeks to be married. A young man will often have what we consider to be puppy love around the age of about 16, 18, and that time he's very romantic about love. He hasn't really got game. He hasn't, and I'm not really about game, but he hasn't got an understanding of how the dating world works and female nature. He still is very romantic about women and how women operate. Basically, the guy is blue pill. He doesn't understand the truth about female nature, the duplicitousness of it's hard to say when you've got an overbite. He doesn't understand that women often say one thing and mean another. He doesn't understand at that young age the concept of testing. And I'm a female, I've tested guys, and it's natural to test guys. Any guy who contests testing or protests testing, I'm not gonna shame that man. I understand why he's not excited about the idea of being tested. But there's a difference between testing a guy because you need to see what kind of stuff he's made of, has he got that fortitude about him, versus just toying with the guy for the sake of toying with him. Playing games and testing guys just for the sake of it is not fun. It's going to damage the relationship, because no one wants to feel like they're being made to jump through untold amounts of hoops for no real reason. Back in the day when we didn't have, how can I say this? A woman testing a man is a way of her making sure that he is stable and grounded, because at the end of the day, you could be physically strong, but if you're mentally weak, you are going to be a liability to yourself, your family, your kids, because you're not smart enough to be able to make the moves necessary. And this is why I've said it before, I say it again, romance and love and the dynamics between men and women is really a dance. It's really about a dance where you're both trying to lead and follow at the same time. Now, am I saying that a man should seek to follow a woman's lead? No, but it's a push and a pull between the man and the woman. The woman is going to first put herself out there, and she's going to attract males to her. Then from those males, she can select the ones she wants to entertain. In contrast, the man is also assessing this woman. Is she an asset to my life or a liability? Yes, I'm physically attracted to her, that's why I approached her, but does she have the character? Does she have the wherewithal? Does she have the mindset? Does she have the nurturing instinct? Are we on the same page in terms of goals for the future? And I don't mean career goals, I don't mean education goals. I mean, I want to build this kingdom as a man. Will this be a queen that can build a family, a home? Can she take care of my kids right? Does she take care of herself properly? When we go out, is she somebody who I can have as a consort on my arm? That's what he's thinking. So both are trying to suss the other one out to see whether or not this person has what it takes for us to build a future. The woman doesn't have to necessarily, and I don't mean this just literally like this, the woman doesn't have to bring anything to the table but her looks, because her looks are indicative of her fertility, and they're an indicator of her sense of pride and self-worth. So the woman only has to show up pretty. That is the primary thing that she will use to attract male attention. Once the males start coming, she is supposed to be evaluating those males to see which male she wants to date. And then once she has established the men that she's attracted to, she can now begin to see which ones she has the most compatibility with, and from there become exclusively courting and progressing towards a marriage. This is where a lot of young women derail themselves early on in life, because they don't understand the purpose of their youthful beauty. They think their youthful beauty is to take 1,000 selfies with duck face and the behind sticking out for Instagram, and then maybe we can make a little money on OnlyFans. But the reality of this, you have a limited window where you are at the peak of your physical attractiveness, and you're supposed to use that, like a signal or a beacon. There's nothing wrong with attracting a lot of male attention. The problem and the error comes in when you miss your window of opportunity to get the highest value mate that you possibly can and check out of the game. I've been thinking recently about at what age should a girl be thinking about marriage? And the more I think about it, is the more I have to just admit it's kind of like the younger the better. We live in an age now where there's no such thing as innocence. If a child has a mobile phone, I mean, you don't even need a child to have a mobile phone. We have TV that's like 24 hours a day. And I can remember a time where, you had a 9 o'clock watershed. At 9 o'clock, that's where shows could be more violent, they could be more graphic, there would be swearing, there'd be sex scenes, you name it. And even then, at 9 o'clock, you still didn't really see anything particularly hardcore. I mean, if you wanted to see like a really bloody, gory film or a scary movie or something, I mean, we're talking about 11 o'clock at night, when kids should have been long in bed. So if you didn't stay up late, during the holidays, or sneak downstairs after you fell asleep and come down and catch the TV at those kind of times, that was a whole different world that you didn't know existed. But now it's like 24 hours of sex, violence. I mean, I watch repeats of shows that I used to watch as a kid, and they had like the S word in there or something, or the P word, and piss or something in there. That could never come on before 8-9 o'clock, and I'm watching it at like 2 in the afternoon as a repeat. And I think there are people who don't swear. There are people who have small children, and they don't want to be sitting down watching a show like that's generally quite average, and then some random sex scene appears in the middle at 2 in the afternoon. So young people don't have innocence anymore, because we live in an age where everything is laid bare. And now that we have internet as well, it's very hard for young people to actually have a sense of purity. And some people argue about the concept of abstinence or celibacy. The problem is not abstinence. The problem is not celibacy. The problem is the mentality that you approach your celibacy. If you're a woman who doesn't understand that having sexual urges and desires is not a bad thing, it's natural and it's normal, but you still got to be proactive with your dating, because dating doesn't mean sex, then you have no problem. If you understand the difference between dating doesn't equal sex, you have no problem to find a mate and still maintain your virginity. I think I said it backwards, but you know what I mean. I understand, like, for some people they are abstaining for religious reasons, and I believe that's the best way, because the more you start making and breaking bonds with different men, the more you're going to end up getting yourself in a position where you become jaded, you become attached, and then when that bond breaks, you end up feeling like, you lose faith in love. You lose faith in the ability to find a partner because you've been stung too many times. So I realize now that seeing as there is an attack to sexualize young people at an earlier and earlier age, if you're going to encourage marriage, you also have to encourage marriage at an earlier age. And even in developing countries to today, we can still see that they encourage young marriage. Now, am I saying I support child marriage? Obviously not. But the whole thing has come full circle, really. The whole situation has come full circle because by promoting feminism and women being more autonomous, they've literally sabotaged themselves out of the dating market, because there's so many of them who are waiting till late. They're struggling to have children, they're struggling to find partners. The men that they would have been, paired off with at a young age, those men are not even available. And so the idea of seeking a husband in your youth, things like letting your family and friends help you find partners and things like that, these are old concepts. Newfangled concepts are like new brooms. They sweep good, but that old broom that you have, you know how to work it like a lightsaber. And there's a saying, the new broom sweeps good, old broom knows the corners. We live in a time where people want to keep reinventing the wheel, reinventing dating. The reason why the Bible is still relevant today is because human nature does not change. There is no red pill book like the Bible. Because when you read about all these questionable women and, women who have questionable characters, and the harlots and the virtuous women, nothing has changed. There are still women out here who are virtuous. There are still women out here who are harlots. There are still men out here who are blue pill. There are still men out here who are courageous. I mean, human nature hasn't changed. Just because, you got a whip now before you had a donkey doesn't mean to say that, there's any difference in human nature. That hasn't changed. And because there's such a concerted effort to basically derail people at an earlier and earlier age, the reality of the situation is now, if you want black people to have stable, intact families, you have to also be about promoting marriage at a younger and younger age. I mean, in terms of getting your child to be productive, you need to be looking to start working on them from like the age of 3. From the time that they can understand certain concepts, you should be working with them, building up their confidence, building up their skills, building up their knowledge, helping them to practice their techniques or whatever it is that they want to go into. Tiger Woods was training from the age of 3. So we need to understand that if you want greatness in the next generation, you have to start investing in them earlier and earlier, because the world is out to get these young people. And going back to the young men don't understand certain things, but they know how they feel about girls when they see them. And this is why a number of guys, they become deject, they become full of red pill rage. I've said this before, this concept of egalitarianism, it throws a lot of young men off, because they believe in this idea that men and women are essentially the same and that they're developing at the same rate, when they are not. The man is not developing at the same rate as the woman. The man comes into his prime at a later time than the female. And it does happen that you could marry your teenage crush and your high school sweetheart. That really does happen even to today. But the problem is this: a lot of young women are just not wifeable. Never are, never will be. That's bad English. But you know what I mean. Like, very early in a female's age, her personality gets set. So if she's not raised to be a wife from the ages of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, if by 15 she still doesn't know what her role is as a wife, chances are she may never really know. Or by the time she realizes, she's aged out of the market. I mean, let's just keep it all the way 100, man. This is a big problem in the black community, and I've said it before. This idea of the black don't crack, it really ruins a lot of black women. They don't understand you don't have to wait to be, established with your business and your education and your certificates and your car and your house. And then afterwards, when you've done everything you want to do, even having a baby for a bum like Sierra did with Future, I mean, now all of a sudden you go looking for a good man. You can walk and chew gum, you can get your education, and at the same time be seeking a husband. It's not going to detract, but I mean, and this is the native language of the black community is the language of shame. Girl, what do you mean you're looking for a man? You need to focus on your education. You get a man, he can just leave you. And then what are you going to do? You don't have no education, you don't have no money, you don't have no this, you need to make sure you have your own, girl. Make sure you have your own, because you know what these men are like, blah, 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 blah. And then you let other women just derail you when you are in the peak of your sexual marketplace value. Unfortunately, this is how black women do sabotage other women. They tell them, you don't need to worry about finding a man right now, you need to focus on your education. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but while you're getting your education, you can date. Because a lot of women, while they're getting their education, are they not having sex anyway? So why bother to waste your best years just sleeping around or casually messing about with different guys and wasting your time, when you could just be seeking the right guy? And it's, oh my God, it's like chicken and egg. You won't know to seek the right guy unless you have the right guidance to tell you in the first place that's what you should be doing. A lot of women don't understand in the black community the importance of seeking a spouse early. As bad as things be, Hispanic, I've had neighbors who are Colombian. I know people who are from like South America kind of thing. And they're like talking about, we got married at 18. We were young when we got married, and she was 18, he was 19. And that's their culture. They have a culture of wanting to settle down early when they know at least she's in her prime. But then she's not looking at the guy like, I need you to have 6 figures. I don't need you to be the double devil out here, 6 foot, 6 inch penis, 6 months out of a relationship, and 6-figure salary, and I can't even remember what the other 2 sixes are, man. But that double devil is something, again, unrealistic expectations that are throwing a lot of young women out of the game. Because when you are young and in your prime, what guy at your age is going to have 6 figures? How is he going to be 6 months out of a relationship? But because we live in the world of fantasy, because too many of us don't grow up in homes where we understand the real world workings of a functioning relationship. You don't understand and observe your mother and your father working through things, because so many of us grow up in dysfunctional households, or households where there's no father at all. It just sets you up with, I'm just going to build a man. I'm going to build a relationship like Frankenstein's freaking monster. I go over here and I like this idea, I put it in the man. I go over there, okay, I like this, I put it in the man. Oh, that sounds good, let me have a little bit of that. And then you just go around, build a relationship a la carte type of thing. And it's completely unrealistic. Sometimes the viewpoints you're holding are even conflicting. I need a man who can lead, but I still need to have the final say, and things like this. I don't want a man telling me what to do. I'm my own person, but I still want a relationship. Well, you can't be in a relationship and be independent. So basically, you're a single person with a man who's committed to you, but you still want to almost live as though you're single. It's not going to work. But because we don't grow up in households with functioning relationships, we don't understand why that doesn't make any sense. So there are 2 phases where men generally are really open to relationships. When they're quite young, I'd say 16 to about 18, where they're still kind of in the romantic puppy love phase. And this phase is great because the men, they really mean the business. I know guys who have been with their girlfriends, you know, since they were 18, and their love is, you know, is going strong. Married, I'm not sure, the last time I checked, one of the guys that I knew back then, you know, I heard he got married to the girl and he's been with her now the best nearly 20 years or something. I think it's like 18 years. And then once guys start to realize the true nature of the female, they kind of draw back a little bit. They also have to focus on their careers and their education. And so during their 20s, this is what was, you know, formerly known as the sowing of the wild oats phase. Okay, these guys, they realize that it's not all about just lovey-dovey puppy love stuff. And the problem is this, again, because they subscribe to the idea of egalitarianism, they don't understand that a 20-year-old female is really peaking in her sexual marketplace value. Whether she understands it or not, biologically her body is saying, okay, it's time to find a man, it's time to settle down. And this is where these chicks start getting, not really 20, I would say like late teens. This is where they start getting into their hoe phase, because their body is crying out for a husband, but they think their body's just crying out for sex. And they start going out there derailing themselves, and they basically show off the other side, the dark side of the female nature. And a lot of guys that are their peers are like, oh, I'm not about this, I'm done, I'm out. Okay? Women don't understand that when them in their late teens, early 20s are surrounded by their male peers are watching, and they realize, oh, these chicks ain't really sugar and spice and all things nice. There's a lot of nasty things about these females that I didn't really believe until now, as I'm getting older and I understand. And then once the guys get over the truth of female nature, then they're able to operate from a position of truth and facts. They're like, okay, I understand that women can be like this, so I need to maneuver like this. And that's how they now go into the second phase of wanting to settle down, where it's not based on ignorance, it's not based on romanticizing women, it's based on logic and truth and fact. Now, the problem that a lot of women in the black community, because we have this black don't crack, oh my gosh, you know, we don't age, you know, mindset, the problem is they think that because they look similar to they did at 30 when they were 20, that they still have the options of all these 30-year-old men. No, these men have now started to peak. They have come into their prime. As you're coming out of your prime, they are entering it. Because now they've become established mentally, they have wisdom, they have knowledge, they have money, they're becoming seasoned in their careers. And so the man doesn't need to date his peer. He doesn't need to date a woman his own age, because he can always date a female who's younger. And now the conversation has come full circle, because if you're seeking at least to be married by 23, you should have been working on your ability to be a wife from the time you were a teenager. But because so many females, they're not raised to be wives early, by the time they understand what their role should be, they've already completely derailed and sabotaged themselves. We have a huge problem in the black community of failing to launch out on time. We take way too long to become established. And our best years while we're in our youth, the Bible says, young man, I call on you because you're strong. You know, when you're young, you're more fearless because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know. You look back and you think, damn, I was a crazy mofo out here. I mean, I should have been in a box or a cell, really. Because when you look back on all those teenage stories, you wonder how the hell you made it out alive of some of these situations that you put yourself in. And sometimes that naivety, that causes you to be fearless is a good thing, because it causes you to chase things that a more cautious older person would not do. And I'm not saying be reckless and stupid. I'm not saying being foolish is a good thing. But life is full of risks. The older you get, sometimes the less you want to take risk. But without risk, you can't necessarily win. And because we take so long to get established, by the time we start wanting to make moves, we've already become too jaded with life to really push for anything. So, yes, you might see somebody who is in a different ethnic group and they've been married and divorced 3 times, but they took a risk. Getting married early, yeah, there's a risk you might meet someone you like more later on down the road, but if you get it right, you're set for life. You don't have to be out here trying to find husbands, find wives, recover lost time. You're literally just having those kids. Once the kids grow up, they move on with their life. You're still young enough to be able to go and have, the rest of your life and enjoy it. And it's win-win-win. Women can really win. But the problem is this. Because we are told as black women a lot of the time, focus on your education, you can always find a man later. By the time we get told, okay, now it's time to go and get a husband, there ain't really nobody out here wanting us like that. It's a lot of bad advice going around, and it's because black women, we've talked about the concept of the sisterhood of failure before. They don't want to see the next generation doing better than them. And it's hard for you to give somebody something you don't have. If your mother never was able to be romantically successful, it's going to be quite hard for her to tell you how to get a man and keep a man, unless she's really done some reflection upon herself to say, you know what, now I look back, I know where I went wrong exactly. If I could do it over again, this is what I'd do differently. But 9 times out of 10, that's not really what you hear a lot of these females saying. These mothers and aunts, they're not really saying that. The same dodgy advice they were given, that's what they're giving out to the next generation. So, I have to shout out the manosphere. I have to say well done to the brothers who have been consistently on this thing for like 10 years or more. Some of them producing content, getting flagged, having their channels removed, having to build themselves up back again from scratch, their content being destroyed, taken down, demonetized. It's not easy fighting the gynocracy, fighting this battle against your own women. It really is. Like, I've been doing this for like 6 months, and I don't know how guys do this for 6 years consistently, because they're constantly having to deal with the problems of trying to get women who just refuse to get it. I don't know how they do it, but then that's the longevity of a man. When a man commits to something, he really means it. The fact that you have a community that looks like this, but you still have these guys every day producing content, taking phone calls, doing consultations, giving advice, rebuking and correcting people, and getting insulted. They're trying to make money and they're getting demonetized. You have people who freeload off them. They love the free content, but they don't want to drop a dollar, man. Come on. These guys are working hard. So we have to respect the fact that they have, changed lives. And before you say, these black men, they ain't this and the black men ain't that. I mean, I started out watching red pill content in the white manosphere. And these are people who were like, I was literally on the verge of putting a noose around my neck. I was so depressed. And I know it's a cultural thing. I understand that white men have different struggles to the black men. So definitely I can appreciate that there's a difference in terms of how black men deal with prolonged poverty and lack. Because obviously being a minority, being a lower class, I shouldn't even say lower class, but being in a lower economic class generally compared to the rest of the community or compared to your white counterpart, black people have just come to accept their lot. So they're not necessarily so, they're not so much in despair compared to a white man who buys into the Disney dream and then his bubble pops. You know, he can't handle that his white privilege cannot open every door. Whereas the black man understands that he probably doesn't have any privilege, so he's just like, yeah, whatever, I'll get on with it. So it is what it is. So the takeaway from this video is, if we want to see a functioning community, we need functioning families. We cannot have functioning families unless we have girls who are a younger age, are marriage minded, and that they're guided into understanding their role as a woman and why they have their beauty. Their beauty is not for OnlyFans. Their beauty is to attract men so that they can pick the best suitor that comes their way. Guys need to understand that, yes, you know, if you don't find a good girl at 15 or 16, and, you know, probably she's going to be still on that hypergamy thing, you know, that's her nature to want guys who are older. Don't take it personally. I mean, I can't say to you at 15, 16 or 18 go younger, because that's really not legal. But if you met a chick who's 13, 14 and she had her head screwed on straight, you guys can talk, but she has to be legal. That's what I would say. And that sounds really weird and creepy. It feels weird and creepy saying it. But the reality is this: if you have 13-year-olds going over to Jason Pope's house for sex, or, you know, exchanging sex for tickets to concerts, voluntarily taking their behind to grown men's homes, why is it weird and creepy to say at 16, 17, 18, I really like you, but you're too young, come back in 4 years and we can talk, but I've loved you since you were 13 or something? I don't know. I mean, if a white man said, we met when we were 12 and I knew then I wanted to marry her, and then I waited until, you know, we were 16, 18, 17, everybody would be like, oh, that's so cute. But when it's a black person saying that, everyone's like, ew, that's so creepy, you know. And I get it. We live in a culture that's so over sexualized, nothing is pure. So it is hard to imagine a man with good intentions just saying, I really like a younger female, but I'm not, you know, so desperate for young blood that I'm gonna just get with some little teenage kid. But the problem is, we live in a culture where young people are not prepared to be wives at the age when they're at the best to get the best. They're just not. And that's what sabotages the entire black community. You know, the fact that we can't have functioning families because we don't have women that are raised to be wives and raised to recognize quality men early means that by the time they understand what they should be doing, they've already gone astray and probably even brought other people into the world who have now been kind of failed as well. Because by the time the woman realizes, I've made a mistake, the kids are watching and copying the very same mistake she's made. So I don't know what I'm going to call this video. You know, I think I'm going to call it Prepare to be a wife at 15 and be married by 23 or something, because that's really the plan. Seeking to be married early is what's going to enable you to be able to prepare in the right way, because you have to be trained to be a wife, because a wife is a job. It's not, being a wife is a job. It comes with a set of criteria. If you don't understand that, it's going to be very difficult for you to know how to please your man and do what you need to do to keep the marriage working. If we don't have functioning relationships, it's going to be very hard for us to know how to love our husbands. Again, the scripture makes it very clear. It says older women teach the younger women how to love their children and their husbands. Just because you're a female doesn't mean it's automatic for you to know what it takes to keep a family going. And this is the sad fact that in a lot of instances, we're not raised to know how to love men or how to appreciate them or how to raise children. At the end of the day, black women have this expectation that a high value man is going to just sit around and he's going to tolerate certain things because you're pretty or because you're giving him sex. And this is just a lack of understanding of the male nature. A man who's high value is successful. A man who's high value is determined, he's driven, he has structure, he has discipline, and he wants a woman who's going to be an asset to his life. Now, when you are younger, you're more likely to get a pass from a brother because he understands that you are young and therefore you're less likely to be knowledgeable, you're less likely to be wise. But as you age, his expectation upon you is going to go up because he's thinking you should have the life experiences necessary to be a benefit to his life. If he's going places, he wants a consort on his arm, he wants a female who's going to be an asset, not a liability. And again, you have these women who have these off the cuff remarks like, all a man wants is sex. And that kind of reduces a man to the level of almost an animal. Like all he does is rove around looking for females to sleep with. The kind of men who are like this, these are not generally high value men. Or, you can be an affluent pookie and a Ray Ray, for example. Future is a pookie. No matter what you want to say about his money and if he's got skill as an artist, the bottom line still remains that he is a sexually irresponsible man. So, although we can say that there are men who have high degrees of money, it doesn't mean to say they are high value. And I'm not going to say that a high value man should be broke. There are good men who are financially not that successful, or they're not in those high six figures, because we know the average is not like that. The average man across the board of any race is not making six figures. So let's just be realistic about that. But there are men who are successful, who are working hard. They are not in trouble with the law. They're responsible. This is a good man. And most people are average, so there's nothing wrong with being with an average man. But even a man who has a good job, even if he hasn't broken six figures, he's still going to have needs, he's still going to be disciplined, he's still going to expect his woman to be supportive and a helpmeet. So when black women are not raised to be wives, they become a detriment to their men over time. And that's why it's so important for women to understand how important it is to be trained to be a helper to your man. Because over time, as you age, the juice just becomes less worth the squeeze. At least if you have a youthful female who, is on the right track and she's teachable, she's cooperative, she has femininity, she can be groomed and trained to be the companion for that particular man. A lot of people think the word help meet is the word help mate, but these two words are two different things. A help meet means a suitable helper, because although at the core most men need the same thing. For example, men interpret love with respect. If you disrespect a man, saying to a man, I love you but I don't respect you, is as painful to a man as saying to a woman, I respect you but I don't love you. Because both are upset about how you are deemed by the other person at your core, but it's central to a man to feel like he's doing a good job, he's working hard, you appreciate his effort, he's actually satisfying you. That's why partly I believe when you say to a man, I don't respect you, he feels like a failure. And that's why he sees it as, you can't love me because I'm failing. And so men interpret love from the standpoint of respect, whereas a woman doesn't necessarily feel like I have to bring X, Y, and Z to the table, but you should just love me for who I am. So when they say I can respect you but I don't love you, it's like, I respect you but your sex is bad, or I respect you but I don't really like your private parts, or I respect you but I don't really like you. And that cuts a woman at her core, because she knows that's the most important thing she's bringing to the table. So when women don't understand how to love their men, this is what the scripture says: you have to be trained to love men, because you need to understand them first before you can love them. It's going to be very hard as you get older and you become set in your ways to really be an asset to a high value man, and even any man, because these days it's hard for men to look around and find women that they can really say, I'm going to bring this person on board and she's going to improve my quality of life, which is what a helpmeet should be. A helpmeet is supposed to be suitable for that man. So if he's into sports, are you sporty? If he's quiet, can you tolerate the quietness? If he's an extrovert and he likes to be outgoing and sociable, can you manage being with him in that type of environment? When people say it's different strokes for different folks, or everyone does their marriage their own way, it's these small differences that we should really be talking about. Not, I'm going to slap my man around, I'm going to talk to him anyhow and he likes it, so that's how a marriage should be. Yes, your man may stay for whatever reason under that abusive situation, but that's not the blueprint of a healthy marriage, and that's not the basis of what a marriage should be. The differences in a marriage should be, my husband likes, certain types of food, or my husband likes to go to the gym however many times, or something small that's not detrimental. But at the core, 99% of men, they know that when my woman doesn't respect me, I don't feel loved. And that's something women just need to understand. So women need to get their act together earlier, and unfortunately the older generation of women are failing the younger generations, telling them what they need to know. And this is why you have so many women who are going online, they're following content creators, they're paying for coaching and all this kind of stuff, because they're not getting the right training from an early enough age so that they hit that ground running. That's all I've got for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Share this video with somebody who you think needs to see it. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please subscribe, like the video, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.